our goal is for kids to become more like Christ, even more than just like us. Now,
right.
because we're on the same path, we're just a little older and more experienced, but we don't want necessarily to be their total standard.
No.
Right? We want Jesus to be their standard. If you don't have that philosophy, I don't even know how parents do it, because now you have to try to be perfect.
Hello, everyone. We are Greg and Jacquie Francis, and welcome to High Performance Parenting, where our passionate goal is to encourage you to raise champion children in a crazy world. Every week, we will bring you multiple episodes from our extensive experience of raising our six happy, healthy, successful, godly kids who are confidently equipped to win big in life.
We deeply believe that any parent who is provided with the right knowledge and continual support can raise amazing kids. And when they do, all of our futures get better. If raising up future generations of absolute champions matters to you as much as it does to us, here's how you can contribute. Like and share this podcast with everyone you know. And together, let's embrace this journey of raising champion kids in a crazy world. What a topic this has been, this idea of forgiveness, how to handle conflict. How do you deal with situations when kids are making mistakes, etc.? Parents are making mistakes, etc. I want to go through this one more time. I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I just feel like this is such a great story, an example, an experience that we had, the whole situation with Druce. So just to back it up, quick recap. So Druce was making some mistakes, testing, whatever, tell him not to do something. He still did it anyways.
Hoarding our stuff.
But I'm saying for 6 months, it was more than just that.
Yeah.
It was a series of these things. It was, you would tell him to do something, then he'd be like, oh, I forgot. And it would just get consistent. He really was just being lazy. And, we'll get into our form of discipline down the road, but, biblical discipline. But basically we were applying discipline to him. And each time we were allowing him to say he was sorry. We were saying we do restore the standard. It took a lot of courage on our part because, when you're angry about something as a parent and the stuff kicks in and, it isn't like we're just sitting around in a peaceful state all day. And so when a situation comes up, we're mentally prepared for this peaceful, way of handling this. It's
majority of the time it comes out of nowhere.
Well, yeah. And we have multiple businesses. We got all these other stresses going on in our life. Who knows what's going on between you and I at that time? Who knows physically if we're exhausted from something? But, next thing you know, Druce, somebody's making a mistake. And now we got to take time because we committed to this and gather ourselves. So we don't just go, why are you being such a thief? Right? Because you know how easy it is to just make an identity statement like that?
Right.
Instead, it's like, no. All right. Listen, we're going to talk this out and let you apologize. Restore standard. We're going to implement discipline. We're going to love on you after, and we're not going to remember it. And then all of a sudden he does it again.
Well, and I think people need to remember too, he could be going through this season, and another kid could be.
Yeah,
too, and we're just
multiple things going on.
Right,
yeah,
because it's not like it's just happening. One kid does it for 6 months and nothing else is happening.
So I remember this period because I remember that we had to really work on us in this period because, again, when we had done this with the girls, usually it's like you correct them once, maybe twice, and then they kind of get it. But Druce kept doing it, and it was really testing us and making us challenge ourselves and question what we were doing. But we stuck with it, and we kept restoring that standard, and we kept doing this, and that's why that was so powerful when we did get to that point where it's like, Druce, you're not acting as you were designed, and keep explaining it to him. This wasn't just so people realize we didn't only say this once and he got it. We kept saying it, and then he'd kind of be like, yeah, I get that, and then he would do it stuff again. Then it was again. But that one day when it's like, Druce, this is not who you are. I don't understand why you keep trying to act like something less than what you are. And then speaking into him like, you are an honest kid. You don't steal things. That's not who you are. You have super high character. You have the character of Christ. And taking the time to look him in the eyes, even though you're frustrated, and to do it with sincerity. And then all of a sudden, watching him, I remember seeing his face. I'll never forget it. I remember him, he kind of looked up to the corner, he squinted his eyes a little bit. And I remember him, literally in his own mind clicked, you're right. You're right. But he had to come to the decision of it. We keep saying it to him, but he wasn't necessarily buying it yet.
Well, and just I'm reading this awesome book right now by Identity by Jamie. And
Jamie Winship.
yeah, so good. Such a good book. We should talk about that book in the future. But it literally, he started believing the lies about himself. That's what was happening. Is for 6 months he was believing the lies of either, the devil, somebody said something over him. He said it to himself, speaking negativity into himself. He started believing it, actually. So for 6 months, when he was doing all these things, he was believing, I do steal stuff. I'm not a character person. I don't really follow the standards of our family. You know what I mean? I'm just different. And his identity of himself was so backwards that he started behaving in a way that he started believing his own lies.
Sure.
So then he behaved in ways that were not becoming.
Now you act from that identity that's self-identified.
That's right. And so even when he would do things, he just didn't believe he actually was the character of Christ. He didn't actually believe he did have standards. He actually didn't believe everything we've been speaking into him for 6 months straight, that he had just believed the lie, which changed his actions every single day.
I heard it said one time that when you make mistakes, this is when the devil tries tenfold to work through people who don't understand biblical principles to try to destroy your identity.
That's right.
Right? They will keep speaking things, and they might not be ill-intentioned, but they are undisciplined.
Yes.
And uneducated, right? And you got to be so careful, because I know personally, when I've been in those big fallen states, it's hard to stand your own ground about anything, because you just feel so bad that those words start sinking into you. And that's why you have to build real relationships around you before you need them. But that's a whole nother topic. But, with Druce, it was interesting helping him with the repercussions and watching him go through that process. I think that really locked in his brain that there's always repercussions from when you make mistakes. They don't stop just because you're asking for forgiveness.
Right. You still got to clean up the mess.
And then I remember having conversations with him, explaining to him how much better of a leader he's going to be now. And just explain to him, like, listen, I know you made these mistakes and stuff, but you've learned from it. And now you get it. And I don't know if you realize this, but because you've experienced this, do you know how great it's going to be to be able to teach your younger sisters why you don't want to do this, why this isn't the right thing? And I remember him, again, it's like that little thing. He gets his little eye up in the corner. He squints and he's like, you're right. And I'll tell you what, is he not like the best big brother with teaching them right or wrong?
He is such an example. I mean, like I said, this happened like 5 years ago or whatever. And in the last 5 years, I can't even tell you the example he sets for not only his little sisters, but his big sisters too.
It literally is part of who he is.
We don't even have to question him.
No.
We don't even have to worry about him. In fact, he has always got an ear and eye open and making sure that everybody in his house is taken care of. He's such a protector. He understands what it's like when you get off track, that he doesn't want anybody in the family to do that, because he loves all of us so much. And even as he's had to, in the future, tell us situations where maybe a sibling isn't doing the right thing, he's come with all love and all grace to discuss it with us.
Yeah, because the philosophy here is always, it isn't about punishing your, call it sin, call it mistakes, whatever. It's about restoring you to how you're designed.
And he has told me so many times, Mom, I had to tell you this, but now I'm so sad because I know that they're going to have to go through some steps, but I'm happy they finally get to be free of it.
Right.
He'll come to me and say, Mom, I didn't want to say anything. I knew I had to. And I don't want them to have to get punished, but I'm glad they're going to be free.
You weren't out there. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, sitting out in our backyard here, at our Boise home. And, at the time we're recording this, we're New Year's. It's like 4 weeks in. We've been remodeling the house for 6 months while we weren't here. And so it's finally getting done. And we're finally getting construction people out of our house. And we're finally starting to get some normalcy around here, right? And so obviously we're at this stage where we're kind of, at least I am, I'm a little protective about, all right, let's not break anything. We just got everything kind of where we want it. So Druce is out in the back, and he's such a sweet kid. He took a little knife and he was whittling a stick, and he wanted to make me a golf tee out of it. And he actually made one that worked. And I was like, well, why don't you try it? And I was just sitting out there, and he, so sure enough, he takes this stick he made into a golf tee, puts a golf ball on it, and he's hitting balls out towards the other end of the property. We have a pretty good sized property here. And then he's just goofing around. I think I was like kind of working in my notebook like I always do when I'm thinking at night and journaling and stuff. And all of a sudden I just happened to look up, and what he was doing, for whatever reason, he must have seen it on when we watch golf or something. He was trying to golf left-handed And so what you do is, because the clubs are right-handed, you kind of flip it upside down. It's like if you ever got stuck near a tree and you couldn't stand there, you see professional golfers will flip their club upside down and they'll whack it left-handed just to get it out of there. And so he's over there and you can see he's trying to figure out how to do this. And sure enough, he whacks it, but see, he didn't turn around. So he hits it, instead of hitting it out towards the end of the yard, he hit it directly towards the house. Sure enough, connects like you can't imagine with this thing, flies up. You know how we have about a foot space between a couple of our windows in the kitchen on the corner? He hits right in between those. If you would have been there, I think a shoe would have come flying from the top floor.
What'd you do?
Hit him in the forehead. Well, I freaked out, of course, you know. I mean, there wasn't enough time. It's like, I'm down here, it's peaceful, everything's good. He just made me this cute little thing. I'm all in la la land over here. And all of a sudden I look up and he's left-handed swinging, nails it, and nails our house. I thought for sure it was going through a window, probably going to hit another kid in the forehead or something. You know what I'm saying? Because he hit it good. And bam! And all of a sudden he looks at me. His eyes got so big. He's like, huh, huh. You could tell he just realized, I should have turned around. I'm like, Druce, you can't aim towards the house. I'm sorry. He goes and gets the ball. I literally had to walk away for a second because I'm just like, I was afraid I was going to look and find a broken window. And I didn't want to fix anything, right now. And sure enough, I don't know what he did. He went and did I think he went and put the golf club away is what he went and did.
Smart
up
boy.
in the garage.
He's so smart.
He's smart. He comes back and he literally had this look on his face. He's like, Dad, listen, I don't even know how to say how sorry I am. Like, I don't even know what I was thinking. Like, he's like being so honest. He's like, I don't even know why I didn't figure that out, that I shouldn't do that. But I did. And I'm really sorry. Like, I don't want to hit the house. And I just grabbed him quick. At the time, he's 11 going on 12 right now. And he's not just a teeny little boy anymore. But he just melted in my lap. And I said, listen, kind of sorry I jumped off. I kind of just reacted like I did and yelled at you like I did. But I didn't know what to do either. We both kind of giggled. And I said, listen, I know you're really sorry. I know you didn't mean it. You know what? Just remember, standards fully restored. And it's something about feeling your kid literally like melt. Like there's like such a physical release even. He just melts. And you know that when that's happening, that connection that gets restored between us is so important. I got to tell you, these kind of scenarios, they help me so much to understand God more. They help me so much. Like when Druce is making these mistakes and he's like, he's making them, and then he kept making them, and he kept making them. But you could tell when he said, I don't even know why I keep doing it. I don't even know that I want to keep doing it. Condemnation was growing. And so the more he felt condemned, the more he kind of kept like, well, I kind of am a mistake maker, so I guess that's what I do. Mm-hmm. And it took, though, like us pursuing him, just like God pursues us. Mm-hmm. He took us, and just like God never gives up on us.
No.
We never give up on him. And we kept trying to come up with creative ways to get him to stop doing things that hurt himself. Some of it was a form of discipline. You can call it punishment if you want, right? But it was never out of anything but love. I think sometimes when we have stuff happen in our lives that it feels almost like a punishment, something gets removed from us, something gets changed, whatever. Door shut, and we think, gosh, why am I being punished? It's like, I don't know. Maybe you should take a step back and maybe say thanks.
Yeah, I think you're being removed away from a situation. You don't even realize it or appreciate it right now.
Or you're being challenged to change because you couldn't handle it.
That's right.
Or whatever it could be, right? And then, just the whole idea of God is always trying to get us back to our identity of how he created us.
And then give us an opportunity to raise to the next level.
And if we choose to trust him when he tells us he forgives us, when we choose to say, when we choose to believe that he restores the standard instead of like, I'm going to never forget this, but I'll forgive you kind of mentality, I think that's when we can melt back into a relationship with him that's close.
I think it's the only way you can. Otherwise, how do you ever trust God? Otherwise, you always think he's out there remembering what you did and there's some punishment coming. Sure.
But the thing is, though, you have to operate almost opposite of what most of the world around you, at least from my experience, most of what the world around you will do and how they handle things. It's so crazy. But I mean, we live in a world that even though biblically God does not categorize sins, like he don't think that murdering is bigger than a little white lie because he's so pure. They're both the same. They're both the same to him. In the kingdom realm, they're both the same. It's such a hard concept because here on earth, there are categories for sin. I mean, like if you stole a stick of gum, you'll probably get away with that, and have to say you're sorry. You steal a car, you're going to go to prison with a felony. There's like these different levels. So then people take that to the nth degree, I think, and then people start coming up with their own judgment system. But the reality is, in the kingdom realm, they're all the same to God. He's a pure God. Anything sin is big sin, right? And so when we realize that, I need to realize that, because then when someone's trying to make it sound like some of my bigger sins that they categorize as bigger sins require a bigger punishment or a bigger level of man-made restoration, it's garbage. And I know it's garbage. Because you know what? In God's kingdom realm, it's the same kind of restoration, whether it's a little white lie or something bigger. And it all comes back to getting you back to who you are and restoring you so you can operate fully in how he created you. And it's really cool. You and I talk about this quite a bit, but having kids and deciding to really do our best to equip them and raise them and encourage them and build them and, realizing that they're God's and not ours. And we look at ourselves as managers instead of owners, and doing things God's way. It's amazing how there's so many situations that we handle from a biblical perspective that are opposite maybe, or at least different of what we learned and what the world teaches in general. But then you recognize how well it works and how deep the connection gets with your children through it. And there's this like specialness that I know that I feel. It's like, when you're doing something that's in alignment with God's word, when you're doing something in alignment with God's assignment, with the way that he is, with his heart. It says he created us in his image. And so when we're operating within our proper image, which is his image, it's like there's this feeling that you get that you don't get anywhere else. And I bring it up because I got that feeling when I felt Druce melt in my lap on the lawn chair yesterday, after he left-handed whacked a golf ball, almost broke our window in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's a good thing he didn't, but it's a good thing. Yeah, I think it's interesting, though, how each and every one of us has our own thing that we're kind of seeking forgiveness and restoration from. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you may put it aside, for a while and not think about it, but it always comes back until you get it right with God. We all have things in our life that we can sit here and say, I really need to clean this up, or I really need to ask for forgiveness for this, or I really need to get on track with this. And, being in that situation, it's okay. It's just that now you need to do it. You need to go and have that time with God. You need to go and get it right with him. And when you do, he's going to be like, welcome back. He's going to remind you again of how great you are. And when he does, you actually have to believe it. That's the whole thing, God knows our identity. God knows who we are. God sees us for our true selves. And you have to believe what he says, not what anybody else says. And sometimes that means you have to put certain voices out of your head for a while. We talk about it a lot, but how important it is not to listen to outside influences that do not tell you the truth about who you are. And some of that can come in social media form. Some of that can come in wrong association. Some of that can come from TV shows or things you're reading or whatever it may be. We all have to be so careful with what we're programming ourselves with, because you're going to believe it. You can't forget it. And it's going to be there all the time. And that's why, especially even with the kids, we're so careful with their association or what they listen to or what they watch, because we know how important it is for them to stay on track with who they really are. Every time we start listening to outside people that are not telling us the truth about ourselves, we start believing a lie. Mm-hmm. And too much of the lie will cause us to get off track. And then if you get off track, you're not in alignment with your will with God. So then what happens? Not so good stuff can happen in your life. And you can sit there and blame God, blame somebody else, but the truth is you're off track. You're not in alignment with what he has planned out for you. And when you're behaving in a way that is not according to his will, then we all start, believing and doing things that are not true to who we are. And so if that's the case, first get it right with yourself. If you're listening and you're thinking to yourselves, oh gosh, there's some stuff I need to clean up in my house. Take the time, own it, then start speaking the truth into your family members. Mm-hmm. I was just doing a Bible study with the kids this morning, and we were literally talking about the identity of themselves, what they think of themselves, what they can do to combat it when they hear the wrong stuff, and what they can do for each other, because they're their best circle. How can they really influence each other to believe God's truth, not the lie of Satan? And then how do their actions line up with it? And if we just help each other in our even family unit, we can be a force to be reckoned with. We can be stronger together. I think that that's part of the fear in today's world, is that the family unit aren't on track with their identity of Christ. Yep. And therefore, they're all believing the lie. And when we believe the lie, then we're all behaving in ways that are not becoming of who we really are. All of our actions are off. And it is really hard for kids to get their actions on track if mom and dad's actions are not on track. You know, if they see mom and dad behaving in ways that aren't what God's asking them, they're thinking to themselves, well, if they do it, they're my example. Why don't I just do it their way? They seem okay, but we're not okay. And that's why we just always talk about, you need to be in the right community that works for you so that it can really cover your whole family, especially when you both.
Well, and it's one of our standards too, to speak to that really briefly before we end this. You know, our goal is for kids to become more like Christ, even more than just like us. Mm-hmm. Now, because we're on the same path, we're just a little older and more experienced, but we don't want necessarily to be their total standard.
No.
Right? We want Jesus to be their standard. And so if you don't have that philosophy, I don't even know how parents do it, because now you have to try to be perfect.
Back to your whole perfection thing.
Yeah.
Like, well, and what's funny is I was just talking to Abby about this, about keeping the standard high. And you and I are planning a trip to go out of town soon. And she said, you know what, Mom? I remember when you guys would go out of town, and whether they have a sitter or whatever here, and they don't do things with the same standard that we do in our house, you know? And she goes, and I used to just kind of, fall into it. And then I realized, I don't like this. This is not my standard. So now if I'm the only one that's going to do it in our family, and she goes, and I'm not, because I have siblings that help too, but she's like, I'm going to keep the standard high, especially when you're gone, so that all of us can stay on track. And I'm like, what an awesome, awesome thought process, baby.
Way to go, 14-year-old.
Way to go. Because we didn't learn that until we were in our 20s.
No kidding.
And I think that's so important, what you just said. Keeping the standard across the board.
Amazing.
Good stuff.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening and thanks for your love and support. We hope that today's episode added tremendous value to you and your family. It would mean so much to us if you would partner with us on our mission of helping parents around the globe raise champion children in this crazy world.
To do so, simply take a moment to like and share this podcast with everyone in your network. And we have great news. You get more of us. You can expect new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. So be sure to consistently tune in with us and enjoy our show. See you next time.